Hey fellas, see as I already reviewed The Matrix for 1000th episode back in 2017, the look at the other films the series have been meaning to. Given how the series is based on a stylistic series of anime, I think I'll start with this anime anthology film, so let's open up the Animatrix. I've already argued the original film was more faithful live action Akira than any of the pitches we've gotten so far. Fingers crossed about Taika Waititi's getting made. And a better live action Ghost in the Shell than the god awful 2017 movie. Certainly the Wachowskis themselves cite as an influence, so let's get it started. Our first segment, The Final Flight of the Osiris, is presenting the final CG production by Square Pictures before the company was awarded in their video game division after their merger with Enix. This opens a surprisingly sensual take on the sparring program between Captain Thaddeus, voiced by Michael Richardson, and Jue, voiced by Pamela Adlon. Not that I'm complaining, but both this segment and the next are clear indicators that even if this movie is animated, it's definitely not for kids. Anyway, the two are called in to protect Zion with their ship, the Osiris, being summoned in Junction 21 by their colleague Robbie, voiced by Tom Kenny. The CG in this segment is quite good for the time. I'm glad that even with a massive box office failure this Spirits Within, that they built on this with later films like Canon Final Fantasy games such as Advent Children and Kingsglaive. On that note, I never played much Animatrix when I was younger, but viewers testimonials have said it's not worth it. The Osiris finds sentinels 4 kilometers above Zion, sending in Jue to warn her and them. Jackie Ann sends a message to Zion just in time, but though in the process the Osiris goes down with all hands lost, Jue included. Our next segments are the Second Renaissance, parts 1 and 2. For the sake of argument, I'm going to look at them both as one segment, which details events leading up to the war between humanity and the machines. There's something only hinted at in the main films. It's nice to see the conflict get fleshed out more. The work done by Studio 4 Degrees Celsius in these parts is simply fantastic. It's much better than I expected. The combination of traditional and CG animation is just incredible even after all this time. The inciting incident revolves around the android B166ER, who is the first humanity to be executed for not wanting to be destroyed by the humans. In particular, the scene of female android getting torn to pieces while shouting, "I'm real," hits differently given recent events and the Wachowski's own experiences. As I pointed out before, as this is one of the first segments in this anthology, it's clear that even though it's animated, it's definitely not for kids. As machines form their own society known as Zero One, goes from a small commune to global superpower, the conflict continues to escalate to full-blown war, culminating in humanity quite literally destroying their own sky to cut off the machine's energy. Yet, despite their best efforts, the war is ultimately lost, leading to the events of live-action films. They're not lighthearted in any way. I really like the Second Renaissance for how it adds a sense of ambiguity to war in the main films. Not as simple black and white, but much like the clashing metal, a moral grey area. Even fixed the discrepancy in the original movie by restoring Wachowski's original explanation for how they use humans for energy. As for the order of these segments on my HBO Max profile, that's another story. Moving right along, our next segment is Kid Story, directed by Shinichiro Watanabe of Cowboy Bebop fame and animated by Studio 4 Degrees Celsius. Following Michael Popper, mainly known by a screen name Kid, voiced by Clayton Watson, and he discovers the truth about his world, drawing the attention of both the agents and Neo. As he escapes, although the segment having the same animators worked on the anime segments in Kill Bill films. On top of this, I think the attention to detail in the school, given how high school in both Japan and the US are as different as size of stuff of their own. Though Kid has seemingly met a cruel fate, this leads to his appearance in the Matrix sequels, but that's a matter for another time. Next up is Program, a story set in feudal Japan, animated by Madhouse, directed by Yoshiaki Kawajiri. The centerpiece is a simulation duel between Sis, voiced by Hede Beres, and Duo, voiced by Phil Lamar. Figures. If he's not trying to fight Aku, he's entered the Matrix. It's a fantastic sequence, and one of the many segments that proves the Matrix can create almost anything in any time period. Between a horseback sparring, the bullet time duel, and the bamboo force, it's simply magnificent. The character design is also great, being done by Ninja Scroll, Illum, Yutaka Minawa. Before I move on to the next segment, it stands, especially with the operator Kaiser, voiced by Jean DiMaggio. Imagine that. The segment has both Bender and Hermes Conrad, or Jake the Dog and Samurai Jack if you prefer. We stay with Kawajiri and Madhouse for our next segment, World Record, heard, directed by Takeshi Koike. Hey, the story centers around track star Dan Davis, a record breaking runner who's out to reclaim his record after being busted for steroids. No word on whether or not he also was tested for a low grade beaver tranquilizer. All joking aside, I really like the style's proportions in this segment, how Dan's character doesn't just break the sound barrier, he breaks through the matrix. Not only does he reclaim his record, but he discovers his mind has none of the limits his body does. The way the segment plays with movement, pose, and character design is incredible. Now we come to what's probably my favorite segment in this movie, Beyond. Another segment animated with Studio 4 degrees Celsius. This part is directed by Koji Moromoto. Top of other anthologies is Robot Carnival. His credits include aforementioned Akira, Key's Delivery Service, and Fish and North Star. The segment centers around a young woman named Yoko, voiced by Hedy Barres. She searches for her cat Yuki. Character design, the color palette, and not to mention the way the characters behave, tries to find a line between fantasy and reality. Reminds me a lot of Fooly Cooley series, especially with these kids that lead Yoko to a haunted house where the cat is. True to their word, the old building is full of flickering lights, shape-shifting dogs, and rain on the inside. The use of both 2D and 3D shots definitely adds a mind-bending atmosphere. Elsewhere, the kids from before are now smashing and regenerating glass bottles. Surprised don't run the kids from the Dark World Chronicle practicing nearby. Yoko finds Yuki, but also encounters a couple strange girls as the children in an area where gravity seems to be a foreign concept. An ominous red truck is nearby. Yoko can't live without her cat, and even as agents surround the building, all we see is a struggle, a blast of foam. We see Yoko and the children, and with the building being filled in, seemingly having no memory of what happened. Our second to last segment and is another one directed by Watanabe, a more behind the anime sequences in Kill Bill, simply called A Detective Story. The story follows a hobo detective searching for Trinity, voiced by Carrie Ann Moss, reprising her role from the films. His name is Ash, by James Arnold Taylor. No relation to the Little Champion or the Jedi Hunter, but he is voiced by Obi-Wan in both versions of Clone Wars. Side note, looking forward to the Bad Batch spinoff soon. Back on this segment, I just love the futuristic look of it. His computer has a typewriter for a keyboard, a wooden switcher for a modem. I think the monitor is made of oscilloscopes. Their visual red, black, and white color scheme definitely sells the neo-noir aesthetic they have. So it also takes place chronologically before the events of the first film, giving background to the world, even using the illusion of Alice in Wonderland as code. Trinity gets the bug out of Ash's eye, and the Smiths realize when found out, leading to a shootout on the train, booking the story. Train then shoots Ash in the shoulder for jumping out the window of the train. Someone's also booking it by Ash facing the agents with a lighter in his left hand and his gun in his right. To quote Watanabe on Cowboy Bebop, bang. Our final sequence is called Matriculated, written and directed by Peter Chun of Eon Flux fame. Much like his work on a cult classic MTV animated series, Chun definitely understands what the storytelling and artistic potential of anime. It makes a way better movie than the terrible live-action film which Charlize Theron did. The story follows the human rebel Alexa, voiced by Linda Clark. Animation is not just also done by DNA Productions, people who are best known for Jimmy Neutron and their logo, which features a three-eyed chimpanzee named Paul. And it's only slightly as spooky as some people as the machines. In this short, Alexa is trying to infiltrate the Sentinel's mainframe. A movie between 2D and 3D has often yielded mixed results. This segment, along with others in this movie, makes it work, being quite well suited to a franchise that involves the line between machines and humanity. Back at the lab, Alexa and her colleagues begin examining the machine parts they capture, with Alexa combining herself with a computer or a captured Sentinel. Sometimes it takes me a few tries to get one answer on my shopping list. I actually like the scene where Alexa and her colleagues trying to avoid mail with Sentinel take place in her mind's eye. There's a screening room. While they drop, whole stick their head out like they're Porky Pig. No, I'm not making that up. This thing has little no dialogue, much like Chun's work in Eon Flux, has a benefit of lending visuals and music advance the story. Don't hear the characters again until Sentinels ambush a compound, which is actually a pretty freaky sequence how close movie out on. Alexa's mortally wounded, Sentinel she helps save, helps preserve her mind, effectively make the next stage a link between flesh and steel. Forgive this overused reference, but I think people just ask us to play Despacito, so That's the Animatrix. While the shorts run the gamut from bizarre to grimly bleak, as a whole, it's also a natural move to adapt a Western IP into an anime anthology. Not only does it add to many live action movies, something I love about any good spin off, the experimental art styles of each segment show the world of Matrix can be presented in many different ways that expand on setting on top of respecting it. People who are into live action sequels have a lot to like with this movie. Having watched it again do this review nearly 10 years since I first saw it, it's held up much better than I expected. My final rating is 3.5 out of 4. I will be doing live action Matrix sequels later this year, and I'll talk to you all again later.